to commence business. And I invite you, as a lawyer, 22 years and more at the bar, you should respect the Constitution and enforce the Constitution. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of correction, I'm now 23 years at the bar. Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I thought that the Minority Chief Whip, in the concluding part of his statement, did indicate to you, Mr. Speaker, that you could continue business according to...
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I thought that the Minority Chief Whip, in the concluding part of his statement, did indicate to you, Mr. Speaker, that you could continue business according to what we have on the order paper. So I assumed that he was speaking on behalf of his backbench, who had raised the issue of quorum, who obviously has stood down the matter. So I am surprised that my friend, who has always pretended to be my friend,
only outside when he gets
there, you are my junior brother. It is Wes. He always pretends to be my friend, and yet he's the one causing the trouble. When your chief whip has said that we should continue according to the business of the day, then you get up and say that you don't think that the issue of quorum has been stood down. The issue of quorum has been stood down.
Mr.
Yes,
Speaker,
Honorable
the majority leader is trying to filibuster. I was in the lift with some members of his side, and they were in a hurry that their chief whip was whipping them into the chamber. So for the first time, he's all over the place. He's now seen how hard it is to do government business. So he's delaying to fill for the place and all. Mr. Speaker, he makes a certain point. He says that there is no government business, so there's no need to whip his side. Let me remind us, he said that whenever there is government business, he will see his numbers in the chamber. Let me remind him, when you were doing the first approval, the first nominee, the first batch, you were not up to 100. You needed outside to add to your numbers. The second batch, you were not even up to 91. We counted you. On all four occasions, you needed the minority, the mighty minority, Mr. Speaker, point of correction, the mighty minority to make you pass your ministers.
Honorable Minority Leader, yes, you are introducing an adjective. When they also start, that will be problem.
Mr. Speaker, on this occasion they can start.
So
they can start.
Minority
Mr. Speaker,
and majority.
Mr. Speaker,
I am okay with minority and majority.
Mr. Speaker, they can start. They can call themselves super minority, super majority. Mr. Speaker, so if you look at all these empty seats, in this chamber now, Mr. Speaker, the so-called super majority is not even up to 50. They are not even up to 50. Mr. Speaker, rule on the application now. This House must stand adjourned. Rule upon this application. The application has not been withdrawn. Rule on it.
Honourable Minority Leader, I don't know whether this is filibustering.
Mr. Speaker, you have to rule on this matter.
Yes.
Rule on it now.
Yes.
This House must stand adjourned. Mr. Speaker, you can't do anything about it.
But
don't encourage him.
When the leader is on his feet, I cannot ignore him.
Mr. Speaker, not against
just like I cannot ignore you as a minority leader.
Very well. Mr. Speaker, you'll be quoted for what you have just said. Very profound.
Well. Yes.
When the leaders are on their feet, you can't ignore them.
Yes, yes.
Very well. We've heard you.
Yes. Honourable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it is factually inaccurate for the minority leader to say that during the consideration and approval of the ministerial nominees, this House did not have a quorum, but for the participation of members of the minority. Mr. Speaker, is he saying that members of the minority are not part of this house, or that they have no obligation to constitute the quorum of this house? And so on what basis do they take monthly salaries, Mr. Speaker? On what basis? What were they elected to do? To come and sit outside the chamber of this house. You were elected to equally sit in this chamber the same way the people on this side are supposed to sit in the chamber. So when you sit in the chamber, you perform your public duties. Mr. Speaker, if I start citing members of the minority for not being in the chamber, we will know, and look at them at all times. They don't even have 1/4 of their number in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, is it a deliberate ploy? But Mr. Speaker, that is not the issue. As we speak, they are not even up to 18. Ghanaians gave them 88. Ghanaians gave them 88. And they are using only 18. Next election will reduce it further. 88, and you are using 18. It means that you need only 18 in the chamber. So we will let the electorate know that even the 18, you are not using them efficiently. So perhaps they should reduce the number further and make it 18. Mr. Speaker, I am not against Order 64 applying. But as you can see, we have the numbers. We have the numbers. We have the numbers. And Mr. Speaker, if you read, you are not insisting on quorum, and you want to make statements.
Honourable members, fortified by Order 64, marginal note, quorum in Parliament, Article 102 of the Constitution. I stand on 64(4) to direct the to ring the bell. All members, let's proceed to look at the vote and proceedings. Vote and proceedings, 7 February 2025. Page 1. Check the console. Page 2. Page 5. Page 6. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7.
In the spirit of cooperation and the national interest, in our quest to assist the majority to do government business, I wish to withdraw my application on quorum.
Page 8. Yes, Honorable Minority Whip.
Speaker, I thought my colleague, the Honorable Ewua, who had raised or come under Article 102 and Order 64, raising quorum consent, has withdrawn that. And Speaker, just to bring it to your notice so that you acknowledge that on this day, the minority decided to have mercy on the majority. We decided to have mercy on them. And accordingly, the quorum, under the Constitution, Speaker, we have decided to withdraw the quorum consent that was raised a while ago. And this is being done in the spirit of cooperation. Mr. Speaker, I see my respected leader, and not to put the whip under undue pressure. I see him running around making calls. We want to have mercy on you, and also to display that indeed it is out of patriotism, the love for our country. That is why we are withdrawing this. And it cannot be the case, Speaker, that the majority leader will say that we have no government business. That is untenable.
Honorable
Go
Chief
and find government business and bring it to this house for it to be prosecuted.
Honorable Chief Whip.
Speaker, that is an important point.
Honorable Minority Chief Whip. I am reliably informed that the number at the chamber now is 97.
Speaker, let the record reflect that indeed we withdrew the quorum matter before the number, they got the number. The record should reflect same. Yes, we did.
May the record reflect that
Speaker,
at the time that the issue relating to quorum is being withdrawn, the number at the chamber is 97.
Speaker, with the greatest respect to you, would you be kind enough to furnish us the time we got this number? Because about 5 minutes ago, we reviewed our call on quorum. So we had withdrawn that. We had withdrawn the call on quorum before they got the number. That is a fact. It's a fact. It's a fact. We have shown cooperation. We are helping you to do government business. And yet you don't have government business.
I recognize Honorable Soini.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the indication that at the time that the application was made to withdraw the earlier call, the number in the chamber was over 90. But Mr. Speaker, I just want to use this opportunity to caution ourselves as we employ these tools that are allowed within our operations as members of parliament. Mr. Speaker, this caution has become important because it does not only interrupt the work in the chamber, but it also interrupts committee work. Mr. Speaker, myself and colleagues have just been called out of committee meetings to come to the chamber to be counted. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, we have guests from state institutions who are waiting for us. What we were doing there, Mr. Speaker, is part of parliament business. And it is unfortunate that we have had to make these guests wait for us so that we can just come here to show our face. That also interrupts parliament business in some way. Mr. Speaker, I do not begrudge the minority for imitating, in some cases, what may have happened to them when they were in government. But they should do so responsibly, like the minority at the time did, without unnecessarily, embarrassing all of us. Because as we speak, those leaders of those state agencies will think that Parliament is not a serious place. They have had to wait all morning just so that members can come, into the chamber to be counted for business to be conducted. So, Mr. Speaker, my caution is that we should employ these, tools very, very judiciously.
Are you on a point of order?
So, Mr. Speaker, my caution is that we should employ these tools. We should employ these tools judiciously and use them in a way that we will not be ridiculing ourselves and also, by extension, be ridiculed by the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Honorable
Speaker.
Deputy Minority Whip.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm very surprised the angle at which the Member of Parliament for Tamale North is going. Mr. Speaker, he has used some words in this regard that is unparliamentary. When you say unnecessarily, when constitutional matters are raised, at the time the quorum was, you have been invited to look at the quorum of the chamber. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that we did not satisfy under Article 102 of the Constitution. So is it the case that you are saying that by averting our mind to Article 102 of the 1992 Constitution, that we don't have 91 or more to commence government business was unnecessary? And even if you are at committee meeting, you are not the only member of the committee. The minority whip is also a member of the committee that you are talking about. So even if there is a committee meeting, it should be suspended. If we need numbers in the chamber, every committee meeting, if you have to suspend them to come in here to get the quorum to commence business. But it should never be the case, and it must not be on our record that the way you think that you are engaged somewhere is more important than what we do in the chamber. Then what would be the essence of us being in the chamber? So I think that my nephew is completely out of order. He's warming up to be a deputy minister for Deputy Minister for Rules, and he has to be guided. And he's senior here, so he should not mislead us into believing that if you are at a committee meeting, you are not needed in there. This is a constitutional matter, and if the Constitution is triggered in anywhere that you are, you have to respect and obey by what the Constitution says. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there's a point that needs to be made, and I think that the Honorable for Tamale North and what he has said about how we use the question of quorum is very, very important. Leadership is aware that in this House, when we first come in and we are at the point where we are saying our prayers, we are looking at votes and proceedings, we hardly ever raise the question of quorum at that stage. The business of the day has not yet even started. And that is when you come to the point where it says, at the commencement of public business. At the commencement of public business. We haven't even commenced public business. We are just at the point of saying prayers, correcting our votes and proceedings. Then consistently you raise quorum. Mr. Speaker, you were given orientation. Take your orientation seriously. Take your orientation seriously. When we get to public business, then you see that there's no quorum. Then you raise the question of quorum. If we are going to raise quorum when we are about to pray, if we are going to raise quorum when we are about to correct our votes and proceedings. Mr. Speaker, I have heard the Deputy Whip saying that we need quorum to pray. How can we need quorum to pray? How can we need quorum to correct our votes and proceedings? We need quorum at the commencement of public business. That has been the practice in this House. That has been the practice in this House. Mr. Speaker, let me add that let's not turn this whole idea of quorum as a political weapon. Mr. Speaker, consistently this side of the House, you've never been up to 1/3 of your number since we started proceedings. To 1/3. Of you are just 21. And like I said earlier, Ghanaians gave you 88 seats. And consistently you have utilized just about 21. Next election, we'll give you only 21. Because you have demonstrated that that is why you need to do business in this house. But I think that we have room to do business, and even though we haven't reached public business, you withdrew your issue of quorum earlier. So what are you going to litigate?
Honourable members, let's look at Article 102. Article 102 of the 1992 Constitution states, and I quote, "A quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all members of Parliament." Honourable members, let me also take you to look at Order 64.3. A member may draw the attention of the person presiding at any time during a sitting constitutes less than 1/3 of the number of Parliament. Honourable members, these are the relevant constitutional provision as well as our own standing orders. Honourable members, I ask that the bell be rung for 10 minutes, and within the 10 minutes, I was informed that we have 97, and consequently, the quorum was withdrawn. Can we make progress? Page 8. Page 8 of the vote and proceedings. Honourable members, let's have the vote and proceedings adopted, and then we can make progress. Honourable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, on page 7. Mr. Speaker, after the presentation of business statement, the issue of the previous day's vote was corrected, that the Mr. Speaker, our colleague Al-Hassan Suhini, in his submission earlier, had used two phrases that the minority must not be seen used unnecessarily. Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, order. Honourable members, order. Honourable members, in the unlikely event, far
that Friday's adjournment was that we didn't have quorum to transfer.
Responsibly, and it should be used judiciously. Mr. Speaker, if the minority leader decides to look at the opposite of responsible, that is not my choice. That is his interpretation. Mr. Speaker, I thank you.
Honourable members, honourable members, order. Honourable members, order. Honourable members, in the unlikely event
because we didn't have the numbers, we actually had 192 members present, just for your guide, for you to guide the House. I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Table of it, take note. Honorable Deputy Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to assist my colleague, the Majority Whip, that he cannot assume that we have about 100 and be raised at any time. Mr. Speaker, for Hansard, when you were adjourning, you said 92 people marked present. When you had directed clerk to count, and we were 71 at the time that we were adjourning. So we adjourned because we did not have the numbers. We adjourned because your super 193 vanished, and you were just about 1830. So that is what is on our record, and that was your direction, and that was exactly what you said, Mr. Speaker. So he needs to be guided. Mr. Speaker, also to advise him that you've just been a majority whip about 3 weeks now. So when I'm talking, I'm your senior in leadership. Sit down, let me finish. I've been here over 4 years, so you sit down on the front bench. He should sit down. I've been your leader over 4 years now. You've just been 3 weeks. So you should be able to learn and be guided on the procedure we use. But you cannot assume that, even Mr. Speaker, we have not even approved this.
Order.
We have not approved this. And for that matter, he cannot even refer to it. Because
so, being a House of Record, tomorrow
Friday has not even been adopted. He said,
Honorable Deputy,
it has not been adopted. So
are you on point of order? Please.
Speaker, first of all,
Honorable Deputy Whip, you are on your feet.
Speaker, first of all, my brother Habib failed to listen to me carefully. My prayer to you. My prayer to you was to seek your guidance. 2 records, because this is also a matter for the record of the House. That on Friday, day 109
had 92 people marked present. When you had directed clerk to count, and we were 71 at the time that we were adjourning. So we adjourned because we did not have the numbers. We adjourned because your super 193 vanished, and you were just about 1830. So that is what is on our record, and that was your direction, and that was exactly what you said, Mr. Speaker. So he needs to be guided. Mr. Speaker, also to advise him that you've just been a majority whip about 3 weeks now. So when I'm talking, I'm your senior in leadership. Sit down, let me finish. I've been here over 4 years, so you sit down on the front bench. He should sit down. A leader over 4 years now. You've just been 3 weeks. So you should be able to learn and be guided on the procedure we use. But you cannot assume that even Mr. Speaker, we have not approved this, and for that matter, he cannot even refer to it because it has not been adopted. The vote and proceedings on Friday has not even been adopted. He's a lawyer.
Honorable Deputy,
it has not been adopted. So for
are you on point of order?
On that.
Please.
Speaker, first of all,
Honorable Deputy Whip, you are on your feet.
Speaker, first of all, my brother Habib failed to listen to me carefully. My prayer to you. My prayer to you was to seek your guidance in respect of the two records, because this is also a matter for the record of the House.
since we started proceedings. You've never been up to 1/3.
I am senior to you in this house. So with all due respect,
which is obviously affecting the people of Central Region. Mr. Speaker, some of the issues are actually to do with sanitation, which not only the health minister, but I expect that the minister who is responsible for sanitation now will also move in there and find out exactly what is going on. I know the doctors are working around the clock, but as coroner is, it's usually ahead of the attempt to try and curb it. And I'm very happy that my honorable brother has made this statement, which is seriously affecting the Central Region. I think last week we were talking about meningitis here, and I know a lot has been done about that. But now the Central Region is actually suffering from this cholera outbreak. And I hope that all the institutions, the health, move down there to make sure that the issue is actually brought under control. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Honorable Patrick Yaobwama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to make these brief comments on the statement ably made by the minority leader. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious public health issue, a very serious one as such. And in 2014, cholera took the lives of more than 200 of our citizens, Mr. Speaker. So if this issue is cropping up again, then we require of the Minister of Health to appear before the House to brief the good people of this country on the steps that he is taking to curb the rise of this issue. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, CSM is also on the increase, and it's taking some lives. And I believe that it is very, very important for the health minister to appear before the House before the end of this week to brief and update Ghanaians on the steps being taken by government on this very important matter. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Dr. Sandari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement on cholera outbreak ably made by the minority leader. Mr. Speaker, it is absolutely unacceptable for any district, any community, in fact, for any country to record a case of cholera. And that's why even one case of cholera is considered an epidemic because of the importance and the severity of it. If we recall, this cholera outbreak started somewhere in October 2024, around Adan, and the inability of us as a country, our health system, to contain one case can lead to the spread of that one case to other parts of the country. And that is why today the outbreak is serious in Ifutu. Not just that place. Records show that about more than half of the districts in Central Region have been recording cholera cases. Mr. Speaker, we have to do something. Our health system must be able to respond to this outbreak and contain the disease. It has the potential to spread to all the regions in this country. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the professor who taught I and my colleagues microbiology said, a case of cholera simply means that you have eaten somebody's feces. Simple. That is a summary of it. You have eaten somebody's fecal matter, either through the water that you drink, through the food that you eat. You have just eaten somebody's fecal matter. And that's why I started by saying it is unacceptable, because you don't only...
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thanks for the Honourable Minority Leader working around the clock. But as cholera is, it's usually ahead of the attempt to try and curb it. And I'm very happy that my honourable brother has made this statement, which is seriously affecting the Central Region. I think last week we were talking about meningitis here, and I know a lot has been done about that. But now the Central Region is actually suffering from this cholera outbreak. And I hope
unverified report had it that it's spreading within about 5 regions. So I drew his attention. Earlier on, Speaker, per your wisdom, you had given some consequential directives that the Ghana Health Service should attend upon the House. And I'm told that they were billed to appear tomorrow. Speaker, may I humbly suggest or request of you, if you may, vary your earlier orders, that instead of the Ghana Health Service appearing, because as at that time, we had to fall on the Ghana Health Service because the minister had not been sworn in. Now the minister has been sworn in. Yeah, so the minister has been sworn in. So the proper thing to do is that we should get the sector minister to come here. It has to be ASAP. Tomorrow will not be out of place. And then I'm also hearing that the Minister for Local Government could also be added, since the index of sanitation concerns are also in there, which cannot be glossed over. So it has to be as soon as possible. And Doc, I couldn't have agreed more with you when you said that it is totally unacceptable in this time and age. Some time back, the concern has been availability of vaccines. I think now is not the case. Is that the case? But if it is, we need to hear from the sector minister, and then we can position ourselves. This House can position itself in terms of action lines going forward. But it's a sad story. It's a sad story this time in age.
Acceptable for any district, any community, in fact, for any country to record a case of cholera. And that's why even one case, if we recall, this cholera outbreak started somewhere in October 2024, around Adan. And the inability of us as a country, our health system, to contain one case can lead to the spread of that one case to other parts of the country. And that is why today the outbreak is serious in Ifutu. Not just that place. Records show that about in central region have been recording cholera cases. Mr. Speaker, we have to do something. Our health system must be able to respond to this outbreak and contain the disease. It has the potential to spread to all the regions in this country. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, microbiology said a case of cholera simple, you have eaten somebody's feces, simple. Of it, you have eaten matter, either through the water that you drink, through the food that you eat. You have just eaten somebody's fecal matter. And that's why I started by saying it is unacceptable, because you don't only measure the economic status or how developed a country is by economic indicators. These epidemic outbreaks, cholera, typhoid, all go to measure whether indeed we're a developed country or we are beginning to develop. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I support the Ministry of Health must come to educate us or to show how well they are
which was very unfortunate.
I call on Honorable Minority Chief Whip.
Speaker, just to commend my leader for show of leadership to the people of the Futu, the prompt response. However, just a few observations. First of all, if we recall, last week, Honorable Dr. Sandari had raised a matter on meningitis. And I also recall when the Chief Whip presented, I nudged him that the outbreak of spare your wisdom, you had given some consequential directives that the Ghana Health Service should attend upon the House. And I'm told that they were billed to appear tomorrow. So may I humbly suggest or request of you, if you may, vary your earlier orders, that instead of the Ghana Health Service appearing, because as at that time, we had to fall on the Ghana Health Service because the minister had not been sworn in. Now the minister has been sworn in. Yeah, so the minister has been sworn in. The proper thing to do is that we should get the sector minister to come here. It has to be. I'm also hearing that the minister for local government will also be added, since the index of sanitation concerns are also in there, which cannot be glossed over. So it has to be as soon as possible. And Doc, I couldn't have agreed more with you when you said that it is totally unacceptable in this time and age. Some time back, the concern has been availability of vaccines. I think now it's not the case. It's not the case. But if it is, we need to hear from the sector minister, and then we can position ourselves. This House can position itself in terms of action lines going forward. But it's a sad story. It's a sad story this time and age. This thing shouldn't be happening to our country. And I hope, Speaker, you accede to my call that normal account will be programmed tomorrow, or we can not appear duly to speak to this concern. Speaker, it's killing lives, and CSM has already killed 14 lives, as I'm told, as of last week. But let me commend the Ghana Health Service. Free vaccines and vaccination, and the people there, as we know, poverty levels are quite grinding over there. People are not made to pay for the vaccine, which I think is good. If it could be sustained, it will go a long way to curb the menace. Speaker, thank you, and I commend our leader for the show of leadership. But particularly, we need the minister on. I thank you.
Honorable Gisela Tete.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also commend the maker of the brief statement, Honorable Afenyo Makin, for this. Mr. Speaker, somewhere last year in November 2024, my constituency, Awutu Senior West, also had a cholera outbreak.
And it leads to a lot. So, Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate the maker of the statement, and I hope that we are able to curtail this menace that has come.
Oh, how come? What did you eat? I had a millet drink, and that brought.
Very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you.
The environment. It could be just something small that they have been doing as a routine, but this time it got caught. As colleagues over, use your community radio, use the information centers. We lost 3 people, 3 of my citizens in the constituency, a child and 2 adults, which was very unfortunate. I will commend the district health team. the district health director.
I am senior to you in this house. So with all due respect, we
to adults, which was very unfortunate. But at least I will commend the district health team and the district health director.
Personalities or persons, how will they get there? They need a lot of support. And just as my colleague, Honorable Gisela, has just mentioned,
led by Dr. Priscilla Bempa, a lecturer. They are from New Joburg South. They are 48 in numbers.
Look at the budget of the Ministry of Health, so that at least the contingency should be in such a way that they will be able to come out and support the health sector to handle issues that come up without any questioning. In the villages, someone will say, you say it's a matter of maybe someone who would have eaten fecal matter. How? How come it that am I a fool? No. There are so many things that lead to it. Insects, flies. Many people even do not think of washing their hands properly before they go and touch food. I was so sad somewhere last week when I heard a woman was being interviewed in the Upper West. She had lost 2 of her children just in a matter of some 2-3 hours. And the other one was lying there, and you could see that it's a very young woman. Meanwhile, she had no way of even going to the hospital. She's, according to her, when she was narrating, to even get money to go to the hospital was a problem. And I think that the intervention of the health directors, who quickly went to her aid and even went to the hospital there, was very, very helpful. But then, we as a nation, we need to continue to give education on the issue of even water that is being used for the planting of vegetables, lettuce and other things. I watched another documentary where fecal water that all other things, and they were using it to water plants. Now, most of these, especially the lettuce, we go in, we say, oh, I want salad. And the thing is not treated. The salad is not treated. It's not properly washed. The vegetable, it has already, I mean, you don't just see that there is a problem because you think that you are eating the right thing, you need vegetables. But what it would have come out with to come to that very restaurant and to your table is what you do not know. We need to give that education to our people. And I also plead with us all that we shouldn't look at it that once it's in the central region, it cannot get to the Upper East. Our surroundings the cleaning of our environment, when we use the washrooms, and for that matter, let me just say the toilets, and then we get back, the children themselves, teach them how to wash their hands. Because for them, when they even go to toilet and there's nobody around, Mr. Speaker, let me make this point clear. They may even go and take food and begin eating without washing their hands. And it leads to a lot. So, Mr. Speaker, I really appreciate the maker of the statement, and I hope that we are able to curtail this menace that has come, and that it shouldn't escalate to other communities or other regions. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you. Honourable members, in view of the fact that we have
of professionals in STEM-related fields, with even lower participation in engineering and computer sciences. The gap is wider in rural areas, where cultural and financial barriers prevent young girls from accessing quality science education. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford to leave half of our population behind in this rapidly advancing technological education and innovation to enhance policies that support STEM education for girls. The government science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that's STEM, schools initiative is a commendable step, but we must ensure these efforts reach. Mr. Speaker, fostering an interest in science begins at an early age. Research shows that girls are just as capable as boys in mathematics.
Whip in saying that in getting the Minister for Health to come address the House on meningitis and the other matters, he should also prepare and address the House on the cholera outbreak and the steps the ministry has been taking since last year to deal with the matter, so that the outbreaks which has entered this year can be curtailed. Speaker, with these words, I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I direct the minister responsible for health to appear before the House within 1 week to brief the House on all the health issues raised on the floor.
Speaker,
I so direct.
I just contacted the minister. He's on the field in monitoring the situation, so he'll be here on the 18th if the House would.
I have taken all those things into consideration in asking that he should appear before us within 1 week.
1 week, very well.
Yes.
We are guided.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable members, we have students from some educational institutions visiting the House. They are from the following schools: All Nations University, led by Dr. Priscilla Bempa, a lecturer. They are from New Joburg South. They are 48 in numbers. We also have students from Kwame Danso Senior High Technical School, led by Owusu Dankwa Achiampong, a teacher, and they are from Sene West, 75 in number. Honourable members, on behalf of the House and on my own behalf, I wish our dear students a fruitful visit to the House. Honourable members, we have admitted a statement in the name of Honorable Rita Na Odole Soa, MP for Dadekotopon constituency, on the International Day of Women and Girls. Honorable Rita Na Odole, you have the floor.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, a day that highlights the need for gender equality in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Last year, in this August House, I highlighted the critical role of women in STEM and the persistent barriers hindering their full participation. Today, I reaffirm our commitment to breaking these barriers and empower women and girls in science. Ghana has made notable strides in promoting gender inclusivity in science. We celebrate outstanding women such as our very own Dr. Grace Ayensu Dankwa, MP for Esikado Ketan, who has made remarkable contributions to medicine and public health. As a double board certified surgeon with expertise in trauma and reconstructive surgery, she has dedicated her career to saving lives both in Ghana and abroad. She is the founder of Healing Hands organization, which provides free medical care to underserved communities. Additionally, she has made history as a parliamentarian and continues to advocate for improved health care policies. Mr. Speaker, we also recognize Dr. Ama Sewa Nekwe Tete, an educationist and policy leader whose advocacy has strengthened STEM education policies in Ghana. As a Deputy Director General at the Institute of Educational Planning and Administration, she has influenced national education reforms and promoted STEM opportunities for young girls. Her work with UNESCO and various educational institutions has been vital in ensuring gender inclusivity in science and technology. Additionally, we celebrate our popular maths and science quiz mistress, Professor Elsie Efa Hoffman, a leader in engineering education at the University of Ghana, and many other distinguished female scientists who continue to inspire future generations. However, Mr. Speaker, despite these remarkable achievements, women remain significantly underrepresented in STEM. According to the 2024 Ghana Statistical Service reports, women constitute only 24% of professionals in STEM-related fields, with even lower participation in engineering and computer sciences. The gap is wider in rural areas, where cultural and financial barriers prevent young girls from accessing quality science education. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford to leave half of our population behind in this rapidly advancing technological era. I therefore call on the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology and Innovation to enhance policies that support STEM education for girls. The government Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics, that's STEM, Schools Initiative is a commendable step, but we must ensure these efforts reach underserved communities. Mr. Speaker, fostering an interest in science begins at an early age. Research shows that girls are just as capable as boys in mathematics and science. Yet societal stereotypes and a lack of female role models discourage them from pursuing careers in these fields. I urge the Ghana Education Service to integrate mentorship programs into the curriculum, connecting young girls with accomplished women scientists who can inspire and guide them. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the private sector and academic institutions must actively support women-led research and innovation. Science and technology drive economic growth, and Ghana cannot reach its full potential if we continue to sideline the talents of half of our population. I encourage the establishment of more effective research grants and incubator programs specifically for female scientists and entrepreneurs. Mr. Speaker, let us reaffirm our collective commitment to empower women and girls in science, ensuring that they are not just participants, but leaders in shaping Ghana's scientific and technological future. A nation that invests in its women invests in progress, and Ghana must lead by example. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. I take contribution from the Deputy Minority Whip.
Right, thank you, right, Mr. Speaker. Today is the International Women's Day for Science, and I'd like to wish each and everyone in the science faculty, I want to wish them happy anniversary. It's the 10th anniversary for the celebration of girls and women in science. Mr. Speaker, Ghana has made notable strides in science, and I'd like to commend the maker of this statement for taking notice of such commendable actions that have been made by a number of our women who are already in science. And I must say that in Ghana, inclusion of girls and women in science education remains significantly very low. But it is important that we make certain efforts and take certain strides to ensure that the challenges that ranges from gender stereotyping, lack of role models, cultural perceptions, financial constraints, and limited mentorship opportunities are made away with. Many young girls, particularly in the rural areas, still face systematic barriers in providing and in preventing them from pursuing STEM education. Mr. Speaker, the underrepresentation is a critical challenge that must be addressed if we are to achieve sustainable development goals. Mr. Speaker, this year's theme is a call to action, a commitment to do something on skating, unearthing the potential of every girl and woman who inspires to contribute towards the world of science. Mr. Speaker, you agree with me that when we speak about science, it's a way of living. And it is important to break down the barriers of cultural stereotypes, economic constraints, and systemic biases that limit female participation in STEM fields. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ghana Education Service, must introduce and implement STEM-friendly curriculum at the primary and secondary level. According to the Ghana Education Service, early exposure is critical in sparking interest and then building competencies in these science among girls and women in our country. Mr. Speaker, the government must expand scholarships opportunities specifically for girls pursuing STEM-related courses at both secondary and tertiary levels. A dedicated STEM scholarship can help alleviate the financial barriers that many young women face. Also, in collaboration with the private sector, industries must be encouraged to show interest in mentorship programs, internships, and research gains that support the generation of female scientists. Proof that success in STEM will be achieved. Science courses who have shown clear intelligence. Those people, whether they are able to financially support these, they are well equipped with computers, and also pay for their gift to be able to pursue the science courses. One Professor Ibok Odro, he is one of the people who have shown, he has been the first dean of the sciences department, the general science department, and he has shown interest by instituting a program which is Total Technology for Girls Initiative, equipping young women with essential skills in coding and then and showing robotics and digital literacy. These are the women that we need within our society to ensure that they can adequately promote the needs. Also name one Dr. Peggy Otibuati, who is the Director of Science in Africa for the UNESCO and current Director of African Academy of Sciences, who has been instrumental to narrowing the gender gap in STEM through initiatives like Girls in Science Empowerment Initiative. These are the people that we need to celebrate, and we also need more role models to take up, because if we don't identify these role models and showcase them appropriately, there is no our young girls and our women to operate science into our way of living. Anniversary, each and every one over here should sit down and imagine a world where we have scientists in every aspect of our economy, and how these situate in our way of doing things. I'd like to commend the maker of the statement and add my voice that we should all imagine if we have women in all aspects of our discipline, embarking on the approach of adopting science in whatever we do, we will be able to make a good stride in our economic development. With these few words, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. And I also commend the maker of the statement. Mr. Speaker, science and technology is something that is driven the world. Therefore, it's important for us to appreciate and support our lecturers, or those are in science. And science and technology is practical. Therefore, our women or ladies need to be encouraged. Mr. Speaker, if you're able to encourage them and they're able to do more, when they finish school, they don't struggle to get jobs. Because nowadays, the world is all about science and technology. Mr. Speaker, we know about science and tech. We can't do away with it. These days, everything is moving with technology. Therefore, we are encouraging our ladies to be involved. We need to sponsor them. We need to advise them, give them the hope so that they can be in there. A lot of ladies are afraid of science. But these days, science is moving the world. We should also help our lecturers or lecturers. We should give them the necessary support. We should equip them. We should give them whatever it takes so that they can do more research. Give them money for research, for them to also compete with the world so that they can do more in science and technology to help our ladies. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to say much. If you go to Cairn University, whereby they do more science, you could see that most of them, or if you go there, there are a lot of programs. Even now, we have a lot of polytechnics or technical universities. Therefore, I think it's important for us to support this science and technology matter. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, thank you very much for the support. And I welcome my students from Kwame Danso. Mr. Speaker, I've learned that 2 of them are sick in the clinic there, so I'm going to take care of them. Thank you very much.
I wish them speedy recovery. Honorable Dr. Samuel.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. And let me commend the maker of the statement regarding the International Day for Women and Girls in Science. The theme, as was stated, unpacking STEM careers, her voice in science. Mr. Speaker, in this country, it looks like we have more women than men. But many a times, we tend to have more men in jobs than women after adolescent age. STEM, Mr. Speaker, is like a product that you are selling. How you package it and how you sell it is how it can be bought. And I believe there are many a times when we leave primary education, are looking at more female-dominated careers. As such, it informs the kind of program they tend to offer. Mr. Speaker, I think there has to be some consequential measures that we as a country will take. Other than that, it will remain an annual event and we'll make statements and we'll come back 10 years again to the same story. We as a country, Mr. Speaker, I believe we have a STEM policy. How can we make this policy more biased so the parity that we've been able to achieve in our second cycle education, we can achieve same in the STEM careers? Because, Mr. Speaker, every nation is going to do well and be very competitive depending on the number of people they have in STEM education, especially at the tertiary level. And Mr. Speaker, if you also want to talk about good TVET education, that means we need a very grounded system in our STEM education, because a good STEM person can be a good TVET person. So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that we shouldn't just make this statement, but we should require the Ministry of Education to give us some measures, some strategic direction that can help us to look at some numbers, some objectives. So in 10 years from now, when we are sitting in this chamber, we can review and go back to see how much we've been able to improve on our STEM education as far as females or women and girls are concerned. How attractive are we making STEM education to our girls while they are young? And how are we making them attractive to them while they are in second cycle education? Many a times, we tend to have more girls in arts, bias, non-science program. What is informing it? It's because that the basics is not grounded enough, because they say they are not attractive to mathematics and maybe the language. Mr. Speaker, if we can make it attractive and can make sure that they are all doing well at the primary level, when they get to the second cycle, their willingness to opt for STEM education will be something that will be easy on to do. So, Mr. Speaker, don't let us just make these statements as we commend the maker of the statement, but we need to have some direction as a country, and where do we want to get to, or what kind of level do we want to achieve as a nation as far as parity is concerned when it comes to STEM education. In fact, when a woman is in STEM education, their perfection is such that it cannot be matched by most men. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a very critical thing that we have to take note of. And many a times, those within the small towns, we call them the villages, we don't pay attention to them. And that's where a lot of girls also come from. So they don't get the foundation. So it becomes very difficult for them to compete when they get to the second cycle level. So please, let's relook and pay some more attention to those in the small towns so that we can prepare them to be very competitive at the second cycle level. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Nawani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity. The International Day of Women in Science is set aside to encourage more girls and women to study science and take up jobs in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the gender equality that we are talking about is not only limited to the political area, it is also taking, Mr. Speaker, is accelerate action. In other words, we have found out that the women have been left behind. If you take developed countries, like where I studied, in Russia, when it comes to medicine, medicine is a course for women. If you are in a class of 10 students, you have about 7 or 8 of them being women and only 2 males. In Ghana, I believe the system is also approaching like that, where there are a lot of girls now being admitted for the medical course. As I speak, my own 2 daughters are studying medicine in Kolebu and then Konfanoche. But when it comes to the engineering, in Ghana, that is where the problem still is. where most women do not pick up the engineering courses. And so we should take steps to ensure that as parents, we encourage our women to pick up those courses. And when even they finish and they are employed, I understand that there's some form of discrimination as they progress up the ladder. Either the pay is not equal, or when it comes to appointing something like in mining, for example, when they have to appoint an underground manager, there are women who are mine captain probably or shift boss, but when it comes to appointing them as underground manager, they don't appoint them. And this is where we should be, as a nation, we should try and correct it. In Ghana, the contribution of women in science, like other speakers have already mentioned, is not small. When I was doing my house job, we had one professor, F.Y. Hesse, a pediatric surgeon. That I'm speaking about 30 years ago. And she was already a professor, pediatric surgeon, and she was doing marvelously very well. What men can do, probably women can do it better. If you take going to space, Valentina Tereshkova is also a cosmonaut, somebody who has joined the men to also be able to go to space. And she studied to qualify to go to space. Like, any other person. So we need to encourage our women. Women, because they form about 51% of less than half or less than 50% of.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, my sister, Honorable from Ladade Kotopo, for the commendation, and thank you for the rest of the speakers. I tend to agree with most of the statements that have been made. Mr. Speaker, for those of us who are women in science and technology, it is a very, very difficult, arduous, and very journey that we have to go through. Surgeon specialist. I have gone through maybe 7 just to be a surgeon specialist. And it is very difficult for girls, especially when it comes to cultural norms and the things that girls are expected to do. It makes science very difficult for us. And so I will go on a different angle and talk about mentorship. I think that on a personal note, all the women in this room must take exceptional interest in young girls who want to go into science. Oftentimes, women, we don't see other women as mentors. And so we should really, really make an effort to do that. For me, in my constituency, because I find myself as maybe one of the few women in my field, I try to even go down and teach in the schools. I go to primary schools and I teach science. Maybe it's just basic biology. Sometimes I go to the secondary schools and I give speeches. Sometimes it just depends. I have a girl group and I have maybe monthly meetings with them just to encourage them to stay in science. Because of our cultural norms, it gets very difficult, and oftentimes girls need other girls to support girls. So we also need men whom I call he for she's, who would support the women and encourage our young girls to get into science. It is a difficult field. It is not easy. And oftentimes when you look at the traditional ways that girls are expected to live, it makes it very difficult. So I commend again the maker of the statement, or the originator of the statement, and I'm also humbled and appreciative that she brought my name up as one of the women in science. And I also want to reassure the House and my constituent that I will continue to be an example for women, and not just for women in science, but basically women in education, and I'll continue to champion that cause within the constituency. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Haji Aladi Ayamba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the statement ably made by my colleague, Honorable Rita. Mr. Speaker, the issue of science, technology, and mathematics is something that has been long overdue. We've been discussing this issue day in, day out for long years. It's quite difficult. Many a times when you go back to the schools, you realize that stereotyping is one of the measures or issues that discourage the girl child. And on this, I will say we need to involve the teachers as much as we can, the science teachers. Just as my colleague, Prof, has just stated, we need to involve them and also support them so that they would bring along or pull along the girl child. It's good that we catch them young. In the good old days when I was in the classroom, we had something like science corners. In the classroom, a corner is created with so many items there, simply to teach simple things that are needed in that particular level by the teacher. And children take interest. When you catch them young, they definitely will go along with you. But also, Mr. Speaker, there is one issue that we shouldn't forget. Sometimes it is the funding, because some items are bought, and if the schools do not have them, the little they have, when it's done with, they are unable to do the practicals that much. So we need to support the schools so that they will get the items or materials that are needed. The girl child is always ready to learn, especially when the encouragement is there. And when I talk of encouragement, I'm talking of support. And also, if the teachers are able to manage them, to understand that they are more or less equal with their colleague boys or males, it will go a long way to help. Mr. Speaker, we may look at it to be that easy, but because we have not caught many of them young, they even get halfway and then they stop. I was very enthused some time ago when I saw on the television a whole crew of only women. That was on the 20th of February 2024, who flew Persian Air from Tamale to Accra, and the flight was OP178. I was so happy that I remained glued to the television without, when even they ended talking about it, I had forgotten, because it's like, wow. Because I know for sure If passengers had been told that it's only women that are going to fly the aircraft from Accra to Tamale, if it were only female that are going to fly it, and there was an option given, I will not be surprised that some people would have said no, we wouldn't go. But here we are. They did it. Hooray to them. They did very well. And the captain was one Iva Jichuru. That was the captain. Later in the day, that same evening, they had a flight again from Accra to Kumasi at about 6:44. I mean, if we give the same opportunity and understand that we all, both men and women, girls and boys, have the same learning ability, I think that, as we have always said, we are not intending to take everything away from the men, but we will put up to the extent that we can do it better than the men. So, Mr. Speaker, just as has been said, I will encourage us MPs to also take it on ourselves to check in our schools where the girl child is doing well, encourage them, support them, and also talk with the teachers, as well. Now that we have special for those days it was but now we have specific teachers for science and mathematics to contribute.
Thank you so much. I give the floor to Minority Chief Whip. Then we would have come to the end of this statement.
Speaker, I am grateful for recognizing me. Let me commend our colleague for Dade Kotopon, who nudged this House by bringing subject matter to the House floor. Speaker, just a few words. Probably take it from where my colleagues, they are called facilitators, their role in this whole advocacy and the scheme of things in terms of girl-child education in science. So I'm all for it. I think it's a good advocacy. However, we also need to tread with a bit of caution. Where a lady or a girl is strongly averted to a particular subject area, it mustn't be the case that necessarily that girl have to be pushed in the area of science, because our children are gifted in diverse ways, and so is the Creator himself, who gives gifts in diverse ways. So there are people who will be gifted in the area of science. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we shouldn't encourage them in the area of science, but it must not be mandatory that all girls must necessarily be pushed onto that tangent. Where the talent and the gifts are different, we must appreciate it as such, and so is the Creator himself. Speaker, there has been a policy on TVET, and governments that have come and gone have blazed the trail in this direction. There have also been a policy in the area of STEM education, girl-child education, the area of science. The question and challenge has always been the oxygen to prosecutors. And so we will call on the ministry that if it is something that finds favor with them, the necessary support